some answers. I can't see anyone anymore, so I don't know how it's going to go. But just a few things. So some of you said you've read Animal Farm before, which is great. You can read it again and become experts. But it was written in 1944. And initially, it was declined by a lot of publishers, especially because of its anti-Russian views. A lot of people were afraid to publish it. But this is the work that made George Orwell really famous. Like, this was a really famous book. He became like a household name after this book was published. But it was also banned by a lot of countries, especially communist countries, obviously, because of the message behind it. But I just included a couple pictures of the different book covers here. So does anyone notice anything about these or think anything is interesting about them?
The pig is on the front.
Yeah, the pig, right? So we learned in chapter 1 and 2 that who's the one pig that's kind of like taking leadership right now?
Napoleon and Snowball.
Good, Napoleon and Snowball. And then these two specifically, so this one here with this pig and then this one, what do you guys kind of noticed about them? Like what they're wearing?
They're dressed like farmers.
Okay, so let me show you.
It looks like a Russian uniform, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, he's kind of got like a Russian uniform on, and then this one, he's got like the coat with the pipe. So you can draw some comparisons to Stalin in that sense. So it's interesting to look at like how the artwork represents like the message of the story. Okay, so we can go ahead and get into those guided reading questions. So from chapter 1, we kind of learn like what this whole thing is all about and what the animals are plotting to do. So Old Major, who was Old Major?
He was the prize like boar.
Good.
They respected.
They respected him a lot. So why are they so willing to go hear him speak so late at night? Because they respect him. What else?
He also had a strange dream.
Yeah, he said he had a strange dream, right? So they were really interested to hear what his dream was about. So he was very highly regarded on the farm. They were curious to hear about his dream, and it said they didn't mind losing an hour of sleep for it. What happened to him shortly after they met?
He died.
He passed away.
Yes, he died. All right. So the next one, so what was his dream about? He says he has this dream, and what was it about?
It's about the earth, how as it'll be when man is gone. And it's also got the song in it.
Yes, good. The song. And what's the song all about?
Like how animals should all come together and unite and like make the world better, basically.
Yeah, very good. So it was, like you said, a dream about what life on Earth would be like without man. And then he recalled the song that his mother used to sing to him. And how did everybody react when he started to sing this song?
They all got like really loud and noisy.
Yeah, they were all really loud. They were all like very into it. They all started singing along. So they were all super noisy. And like, how did the farmer react when he heard them all?
He got his gun. He thought there's
good.
like a fox and shot it.
Yeah, good. He was like, what's all this about? All right. Okay, so according to Old Major and the other animals, what are 5 evil things that man does? What do you guys think? What were some of those evil things?
He makes them work.
Makes them work.
He takes their kids away.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay.
He exploits all the animals for their own gain without really giving anything back to them.
Yep. Very good.
And then at the end of
Like,
their
if you
life,
felt like, say that again. Sorry.
I was going to say at the end of their life, what happens?
Oh yeah,
He eats them.
Yeah, they get executed.
good. So I just copied this whole paragraph into here, but it's talking about how man is the only creature that consumes without producing. So he takes the milk from the animals, he takes the eggs, and then he puts all the animals to work. Let's see, what else? Yeah, it says, you hens, how many eggs have you laid in this last year, and how many of those eggs ever hatched into chickens? So he takes their eggs, never lets them have the chickens. Yeah, and then it talks about how, like, it mentioned how, like, the animals, he ends up just, like, killing them all, and it said something about even the dogs. It was, like, he'll tie a brick to them and throw them in the pond. So just talking a lot about, like, how he just doesn't care about their lives at all. Okay, so what do they decide? What must the animals do in order to end their slavery?
They have
They
to.
must form a perfect comradeship.
Good.
They have to form a rebellion and overthrow man.
Yes, very good. So it says they were going to work day and night to overthrow the human race, to start a rebellion. Very good. So they said it might be in a week or 100 years. And how, so I think that comes to the next, no, we'll get there in a minute. What about 5 things the animals must never do?
Wear clothes.
Yeah, wear clothes. That's a big one.
Touch money.
Drink
Smoke
alcohol.
tobacco.
Yeah, drink alcohol, smoke.
Kill another animal.
Good.
Which makes those the covers of the books that Miss Dana Miller just showed you guys is a little bit of foreshadowing, right? Because what did you notice about the animals on the cover?
They're wearing clothes.
Yeah, they're wearing clothes. Yeah. So at some point, it seems like one of the rules is going to get broken.
Yes. Yeah, so no animal must ever live in a house, sleep in a bed, wear clothes, drink alcohol, smoke tobacco, touch money, engage in trade, any habits of man. So it says all habits of man are evil. And then above all, no animal must ever tyrannize over his own kind. So we'll see. Does anybody, if you've read the book before, don't give it away, but does anyone have any like predictions of what might happen here?
One of the dudes is gonna like turn into like a dictator.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna be like the 2 pigs are gonna be like Stalin and Trotsky.
That's actually a good. I was gonna ask if you, of the 2 pigs, could you tell who is who?
I would say I feel like Snowball.
Lenin is the next.
Trotsky.
So, so I was thinking about that too, just comparing it to it. Like, who is the old major and who are each of the pigs?
Is it old major?
Like Lenin.
Yeah, Lenin.
I was gonna say old majors like Karl Marx, maybe.
That's what I was gonna say too, Nathan. I feel like Karl Marx, and so if you want to maybe annotate that, you could argue probably either way or do research on it. But like the old major is like the one who came up with all of the ideas, so I feel like he might be Marx, right? And then the pigs are like Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky. But that's kind of weird because you're like, wait, there's only 2 pigs. So who would be each?
Isn't there like another pig who like just like rallies them together?
Yeah, and good. Yes. So yeah, who's not as necessarily, smart, but he like is really and I told you guys, remember that Trotsky was like known for being very energetic and charismatic and like really good at like organizing people and getting them worked up, which they said that's kind of what Squealer would do, right? Whereas Napoleon would be like the Stalin, like he's very cold and reserved and like straightforward. And then maybe Lenin would be Snowball, except that Lenin died in real life and Snowball hasn't died. So, it's kind of open to interpretation, But I'm glad you guys are thinking of those things.
Okay, so going off of that, talking about Napoleon, what was the initial description of him? when he was first introduced? How did they describe him?
He was large and fierce looking.
Yeah, good. He was large, fierce looking, not much of a talker, but had a reputation of getting in his own way. Remember that. What about Snowball?
He didn't have the same depth of the character as Napoleon.
Good. He was a more vivacious pig, quicker in speech and more inventive, but he did not have the same depth of character as Napoleon. Yeah, very good.
Which sounds to me like Trotsky more than Lenin, personally, just for those of you who are interested in connecting it to history. But I don't know.
So you say, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that Trotsky or Snowball was Trotsky, and that
Napoleon is Stalin. Yeah, no, I and even like the name Napoleon, right, was like ends up becoming this emperor, this kind of dictator. So it's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I don't think there's any one direct connection, and you could probably argue different ones. But yeah, I kind of saw that way too, Patrick.
Okay. So what were some of the struggles that the animals had to overcome when they were trying to teach the principles of animalism? So when they were trying to put forward their plan, what kind of gets in the way of trying to teach the other animals?
Moses would
Initially-
spread lies.
Okay, spreading lies. Mm-hmm.
The other animals have like a sense of, I don't know, they feel like Mr. Jones is their like proper leader or
Good.
master.
Good. They felt like yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't know the word. It's slipping my mind right now. But they felt like obligated to like be faithful to him. Good. So yeah, so they stayed loyal to Mr. Jones. And then a lot of the other animals were like, why does this matter if it's not going to happen till after I'm dead? So they didn't think it was important if it was going to happen after them. But the you know, Napoleon and Snowball and everyone, they were trying to convince them that it's for the benefit of future animals. So it is important to them.
Someone just mentioned Moses. I just realized it. Why is it ironic that he's Moses, but he spreads lies?
Yeah.
Right? I just thought of that.
Yeah, who is Moses in this in the book?
He's
a raven.
He's like a spy or something. Or Mr.
Kinda.
Jones.
Mr. Jones is Raven.
Yes, Mr.
Wait.
Jones is Raven. So one, I think it's important that he's a raven because what kind of like when you think of a raven, what do you think of? You think of like night,
Untrustworthy.
Bad omens.
right?
Oh, bad omen.
Yeah, good. And then like Mr. Bosky just brought up, his name's Moses. So what do we know about Moses like from the Bible?
It's the Red
He
Sea.
was like a prophet, I guess.
Yeah.
Split the sea.
He did
between,
split
like,
the sea. Yes.
God and then like the people. So
Right.
maybe he's like relaying a message between like the farmer and the animals.
Yeah. Yeah. So like definitely kind of the opposite of what we have with Moses in the book. All right. So what is the last straw for the animals, which then leads to the revolution? So the revolution kind of came quicker than they thought it would, but what was the last straw that kind of leads them to go for it?
When Mr. Jones and his
forgot to
men.
feed them.
Good. So Mr. Jones, it says he went out, he got so drunk, didn't come back till midday on Sunday. They milked the cows early in the morning. They went out rabbiting, but they didn't bother to feed the animals. So then he, went back to sleep, and then it was still evening, and they still didn't get fed. So they were so angry. They couldn't stand it any longer, and that's when they decided that it was time.
Wait, so when we were talking about the Russian Revolution and stuff, I think we said something like the USSR was like an atheist thing, like an atheist country, and in the book, Moses is constantly talking about Sugar Candy Mountain, where like all animals go when they die, and it's
Mhm.
like just above the clouds or whatever. And all the like pigs and everyone who's teaching the other animals are saying that that's all lies. I like just realized that
Right? There's
connection.
this, like denial of religion almost, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which it's funny because Sugar Candy Mountain actually is fake, right? It's like just something that they would say to make them feel better about their life. Like, oh, I know you're going to be executed, or I know you're, going to die from working so much, but you're going to go to heaven. You're going to go to Sugar Candy Mountain. It's okay. Just deal, That's why Marx called it the opium of the masses, right? That it keeps people content with their lot by promising them something better,
Yeah.
Good connection, Nathan. That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. Okay, so then they hold their revolution. Someone described to me like what exactly happens when they finally rebel.
All the animals get too hungry, and so they bust into the room where all the food is.
Mhm.
And Mr. Jones and a couple of his men, I guess, wake up and go and try to stop them.
Mhm.
And then all the animals start kicking them and
Yeah.
getting them out. And so they run away. And then the animals go and close the gate behind them.
Yeah, good. And then who else runs out and runs away?
Mrs. Jones.
Mrs. Jones, yeah. So she like packs a little bag and then also runs away. Good. Okay. So then some of them like go into the house even, and they're looked like the one character was looking at the ribbons and like looking in the mirror and how beautiful the ribbons are. But why do they decide that the ribbons must be destroyed?
Because it's too similar to clothes.
The side of clothing.
Yeah, good. So the ribbons are considered clothes, which are a mark of humans. So what's one of their rules? They could never wear clothes. So they decide that ribbons must also be destroyed. What other objects have to be destroyed?
Halters, chains, bits.
No whips.
Whips.
Mhm, good. Yeah. So
Dog
all these
chains.
things here, the nose rings, the dog chains, the cruel knives that Mr. Jones used on the pigs and the lambs, all the stuff that he would use, like the whips, all the things that he would use with the horses, the ribbons, all that stuff. So anything that reminded them of humans or anything that Mr. Jones would use, they just destroyed all of that stuff. Good. Okay. Oh, I guess I didn't give you a chance to answer, but who comes up with the 7 commandments? Snowball, Napoleon, and then the other pigs. And what were some of these commandments? We've already talked about them a little bit.
Humans are the enemies. Anyone that walks on 2 legs are the enemies.
Very good. Yes, we have these right here. So whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Animals shouldn't wear clothes, sleep in a bed, drink alcohol. No animal shall kill any other animal. And then all animals are equal. So if we think about who came up with these commandments, we have Napoleon, Snowball, and then the other pigs. And then what the commandments are. Do you guys think that those characters are going to stay true to these commandments, if you had to guess?
No.
Yeah, I would say probably not, but I guess we'll find.
Connecting it to the Russian Revolution, who do you think the pigs are?
Just like
The Bolsheviks.
Good. Be more specific than just the communists. They're the
Bolsheviks are-
Bolshevik party. Yeah, they're the ones who kind of lead it and come up with these ideas. So I would encourage you, as you guys read, to try to annotate some of the historical connections that we've already talked about, because I think it'll be good review for you to go over, in addition to the literary stuff that Miss Dana Miller has taught you guys. And, you know, oh, this is ironic, or, oh, this is an allusion to the Bible, right? Like with Moses and stuff. And the commandments.
Yeah.
Just thought of that.
Does anyone have other questions about these chapters before we move on to history?
Any questions, things that confuse you? No?
So I'm going to have you guys, let me plug what the agenda said, just to make sure. So I'm going to have you guys read chapters 3, 4, and 5 for the rest of the week. Yeah, so tomorrow I want you guys to read chapters 3 and 4 of Animal Farm. And then Friday, read chapter 5. And then I'm going to post some discussion questions of all 3 of those. And then on Monday, just looking ahead, be prepared. There might be like a little reading check Google form posted over those chapters. So just a little ahead.
Just a warning.
But we'll put that on the agenda for next week. So it'll be.
And since this is such a famous book, if you want to go like research stuff, Google it, there's so much symbolism and stuff that you guys could, you know, look at. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome to do that for sure.
Very good. Okay. Well, then we're going to go ahead and we'll still finish at 9:30, just to honor your guys' time and whatnot. But we're going to start talking about China. And if we don't get through it, then we'll have a live session tomorrow just to go over that. But we'll see how far we can get. So can you guys see my presentation by chance?
Yeah. I don't see it yet. Oh, it's loading.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Civil War in China?
Yep.
Okay, great. So go ahead and grab those notes out. Red pen, highlighter. If you're typing them, feel free to type directly onto those to just kind of annotate and add to the stuff that we talk about. So we've already talked about Russia. We already went through like what happened with the rise of Stalin, and you guys are doing a good job, especially reading Animal Farm, remembering like Marx, and then we have Lenin, and then remember Stalin kind of rises up and takes power. Remember, Lenin was even a little skeptical of him, like, this guy doesn't really know what to do with all the power that he has. He gets rid of his political rivals, starting with Trotsky. And then what was the really big thing he did to get rid of his political rivals? Anybody remember what Stalin did?
The Great Purge.
The Great Purge, good, which is where he went through and just was like, okay, anybody that poses a threat to me, I'm going to take out, which is what a dictator would do, right? Because they don't want anybody to rise up, lead any coup d'etats or overthrow. And he kind of seizes control. So around the same time in China, so I want you to think everything is, when I say the turn of the 20th century, that's the early 1900s. So just before World War I, right? 1910s, etc. Why at this time, based on your guys' reading, was China ready or ripe for revolution at this time? What do you guys think?
It wasn't modernized or nationalistic and had been like humiliated by other countries, and now everybody except China was in control of the economy and stuff.
Awesome. Very good. So she brought up really good points. It was not very modernized. It was not very like united as a nationalist kind of like they were a nation in the sense that they had a government and they have a territory with borders, but they were not nationalistic in the same sense that they were proud, right, of their nation. And then she brought up another really good point. They'd been constantly humiliated by other countries because remember, even though China was not imperialized like Indochina or like India, it still was constantly, right, trading its resources to the European powers. They controlled all of the trade. That's why they wanted access to the Pacific Rim, was because they wanted to get access to China and then take all of their resources or trade for their resources. So there's kind of this feeling of like, we're constantly like second best, right? So you have on the one side, these are these opposing views, this humiliation, resentment of losing control of their natural resources. This idea that we need to modernize. Again, this is what Stalin did when he went into Russia. So we need to modernize and become more a nation. We need to build up an army, navy, construct. We need to industrialize, right? But then on the right-hand side, we have, and this is a picture actually of the very last rulers of the Qing dynasty, which anybody who studies Chinese and knows how to better pronounce that than I do is welcome to. But that dynasty, I want you to think it's kind of similar to the dynasty in Russia. What was the dynasty in Russia that had ruled for 300 years? Romanov. Qing dynasty had also ruled since the 1600s. Okay, and so they do not want anything to challenge their control. They are going to favor traditional ways. They're going to fear change, because when you have power, why would you want things to change, right? Why would you want things to be more equal? Their life is fine. I mean, look at them. Look at, right? They're obviously, I guess, those outfits look really uncomfortable, but they're, you know, kind of at the top of society. So we have these opposing views, and you have what you're going to end up having based on what's on the left is you have this nationalist movement that starts to rise up. And so we have this nationalist, the party is in Chinese, you don't need to know it, just call it the National Party, led by Sun Qian, which again, if someone else can better pronounce that. But he leads.
Well, I think it's actually Qing dynasty. The Q is pronounced CH.
Thank you so much. Okay, Qing. How about this guy's last name? Sun.
It's Qian.
Qian. Yeah, did I say that right? Okay.
I think you said the X like an SH kind of.
Xian.
Yeah.
Xiang, yeah.
Xian. Okay, thanks guys. That's awesome. I'll tell Mrs. Drum that you guys did a little practice. So they he rises up and overthrows it. Notice the year, guys. This is before World War I. So they established the Republic of China. Okay. And it's led by this guy who, again, is a very charismatic leader. Your book talks about how he's good at organizing people, but he was not good at keeping control, was not necessarily a politician. And so unfortunately, he kind of turns over power to some military leaders who probably pressured him to, and things kind of go south from there. But anyways, under the Republic of China, you should know that it was established based on these principles. This idea of nationalism, that we should not have foreign powers taking control of us, people's rights to a democracy. So we want to have democratic representation, no more this dynasty that rules just because they're from, God, or they've inherited it. And then this idea that people should be able to have economic security. So livelihood is kind of this idea like that people can live their life. And so they wanted these three things that were kind of the basis of the Republic of China. Now, unfortunately, the Nationalist Party goes between being kind of led after Sun Qian kind of steps down. He's not officially overthrown. They start to be ruled by some military warlords who decide to enter World War I on the side of the Allies for the similar reason that Japan enters the war. Remember, Germany had some colonies in the Pacific, just like all the European powers did. And China's thinking if they lose, we'll get control of them. Now, remember, Japan ends up actually getting those colonies. Now, Japan was already bitter, remember, because they wanted more. But China's especially bitter because they didn't really get anything. Okay, so the Treaty of Versailles, this is just another thing you can add to the list of why the Treaty of Versailles created a lot of resentment. And so what happens in China is these people get together, the Chinese get together, and they're humiliated, again, kind of like in Russia after the Russo-Japanese War, and they have this uprising. They call it the May 4th movement, and it's a national uprising throughout China. Make a note that the May 4th movement is led by a lot of more intellectual people, younger people who have studied and who are trying to become more modernized. But this is really important to note. The May 4th movement is significant because, well, one, it's an uprising of the people. And actually your book talks about how in 1989, so, decades later, is when we have Tiananmen Square, which is where you have these university students uprise in China and they're killed. They're just open fire. And it happened in the exact same square, actually, in Shanghai. So they end up turning away from, remember, Sun is the Nationalist Party. They turn away from this idea that democracy is going to save us, and they look at the Soviet Union, which has just, noticed the year 1917, has just successfully had their communist revolution. And they say, we should become more like that. So the May 4th movement is really important, guys, and I want you to make a note because it's a turning point from democracy to communism. They're saying the Nationalist Party has been in power now, and things have not gotten better. We've just been humiliated. We need to go more extreme. And so that's where you end up having this turn towards communism. And so in 1921, again in Shanghai, you have the formation of this the Communist Party. And one of the members was a librarian named Mao Zedong, who joins and who kind of ends up becoming, I put chairman there because that's what he was called when he was in power, who ends up becoming kind of this visionary, again, like Lenin, right, for the Bolsheviks. But his was really different, and this is very important for you to know. So remember, Lenin is inspired by Marx, and he basically said it's the factory workers who are going to uprise against the factory owners, right, against them, the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. Mao, and you're going to read a copy of his book, part of a copy of his book called The Peasants of Hunan, doesn't think that the revolution is going to start in the urban areas. He thinks it's going to start in the rural areas. He actually sees the peasants in the countryside of China as the real and true revolutionaries, not the factory workers, because, well, at this time China didn't have a lot of factories. But he basically idealizes, and make a note of this, he idealizes the rural areas of China. And you're going to see after we study him a little bit more that there's his idea of reculturalization, that we need to go back to the country. We don't want to have big cities. We don't want to have centers of progress and industry. We want the countryside. Okay. We want farming. We want rural life. And again, he recognizes the force of the peasantry. There's millions of peasants in China. They have a huge population. And he said, we need them on our side. Okay. So that's really important for you to note. So what ends up happening is a civil war breaks out in China. And it's between, this is important for you to know the two sides, the nationalists. So remember, nationalists, make a note, are going to be what political ideology?
Democratic.
They're going to be democratic. Good. They're going to favor democracy versus the communists. Okay. And you don't need to know all the intricacies. Your book, I actually had you guys, if you noticed on your notes, you skipped like 3 paragraphs because Chinese history is incredibly complicated. And so the long of the short is Sun Yao now is no longer in power. There's another guy who's risen up and he's leading the nationalists. And he actually ends up seizing control. There's all this kind of stuff that happens. But basically, notice the communists are concentrated in the countryside because Mao has recognized the power of the peasants. They use guerrilla warfare. Make sure you know who can remind the class what guerrilla warfare is.
It's like a series of like kind of like surprise attacks, and they just kind of do like little hits here and there.
Good. Using camouflage, using sneak attacks and surprise attacks, fighting right between the trees, not coming out and facing your enemy on a battlefield. And they're going to use that because they're hiding in the mountains, in the hills of China. They're actually in the southern part of China. And the nationalists cannot seem to beat them, right? They just there's just more and more communists. Now, like I told you guys, they're concentrated, if you look at the map, down in the south of China, the communists are. And they say, they're all split up. And they decide, okay, we're not winning over here. We're trapped because all we have over here is the ocean. They undertake what's known as the Long March. And these 100,000 communists take a 6,000-mile journey across China, fleeing from the nationalists. And you guys can see that on the map, okay? Thousands are going to die from cold, hunger, exposure, battle wounds. They're being attacked all along the way by the nationalists. But notice that they're trying to basically go up to the northern part where there's another communist base, okay? And they establish a bigger base there. So, again, civil war is raging on, and this is really important. How does the Civil War actually end? It never really ends. In 1937, and you guys are going to read about that a little bit later, Japan invades China. Do you guys remember that area of Manchuria that we talked about from the Russia-Japanese War? Manchuria is near China. It's up here in the northern part. Okay, Japan is actually going to invade that. And the nationalists and the communists say, we actually need to pause. Okay, so pause the war. We're going to fight together to defeat Japan. Okay. So they kind of have this uneasy peace. Obviously, nobody's really satisfied. The nationalists stay in power because they currently have control of the actual government. But the communists basically say, okay, we need to help you beat Japan. And then that's when we go into World War II. Okay. So I don't want you to think that this civil war is resolved. It's put on hold, okay, for right now. Oh, that's all. And we will revisit it. But Mao Zedong is not going to disappear. He's going to rise back up and take power, but it's going to take him a little bit longer than it took Stalin, for example. Okay. Any questions about the notes and what's been going on right now? Notice everything's kind of a build up to World War II and what's going to happen with World War II. Okay. Any questions? Problems? No.
Oh, Miss Miller, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the chapters 3 and 4, are you gonna post something to turn that into?
Yeah, so I'll post the questions for that today, so that way you guys can start working on them. But they're not going to be due until Monday, so it'll be for chapters 3, 4, and 5. But I'll post them when I get off this session, so that you guys can have them to start working on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
That's great. Yep. Good. Any other
So we have
questions?
nothing due tomorrow.
No.
Okay.
So tomorrow we'll have office hours at this time. If you guys want to call in, we'll post a link if you guys want to call in and ask me questions. But what you're going to do for me, so thanks for asking. Miss Anna said, she wants you to read chapters 3, 4, and 5. And then I am going to post tomorrow for you guys, and you'll have tomorrow and Friday to work on it. Is a close reading of a speech that Stalin gave to a group of factory workers. And then also an excerpt from Mao Zedong actually wrote a book called The Peasants of Hunan, which is where he's from. And anybody who takes Chinese know where Hunan is on the map, or no? No worries. Okay. But anyways, he's from there. So he wrote a book called The Peasants of Hunan. You're going to read an excerpt of that. And then you guys, there's about 10 comprehension questions. Please feel free to print those. I would like you to highlight and annotate them if you can. If you can't print, I totally understand. But just make notes. If you want to call a friend and do like a Google Meet session, you guys can make a Google Meet and answer the questions together. I would like them in your own words, obviously, but you're just actually going to make a copy of the document that I post, type your answers directly in that document, and then turn that document in by Friday night at 11:59. So you basically have Thursday and Friday to work on that. Okay. And then looking ahead, if you guys looked on Monday, there will be a quiz over Russia and China. So just look over your notes. It's a mix of multiple choice and short answer on the Google form. And like Miss Dana Miller warned you, there potentially will be one on the animal farm as well.
Also, guys, I don't know if you looked. We put in the grades for your the writing part of your test over World War I. So it was out of 40. We just took 20 points for the World War I writing prompt and 20 for the all quiet writing, and those are on Portal now. They were pretty good. I was impressed.
Yes, we were happy with them. I will just point out, I'm not trying to be critical. I wonder if Miss Anna Miller can. I was surprised by how many misspellings there were when you guys typed that I don't notice when you guys write. Like when you're writing it, I feel like you spell things right, and then when it was
autocorrect on the forms was terrible.
Oh, okay. I just thought I was like, maybe it's hard to type, you know what I mean? And it's easier to like put the wrong letter. Yeah, I understand. But I literally was like, they never misspell things. I wonder what's happening right now.
I know. I agree. There was a lot.
Yeah.
But other than that,
we work with it. We understand with the Google Forms. So good. Any other questions about what your assignment is? And like I said, we'll post, she'll post the questions today. I'll post the readings for tomorrow. And then we'll have office hours tomorrow morning if you guys want to call in. Okay. All right, guys. Well, have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for checking in.
Yep.
Patrick, feel free to post your video to the classroom if you want.
Yes, I want to see it.
So we can see it.
All right.
Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Nice.
I gotta stop recording. And oh.